Hello, today I'll show you how to make an advanced spawn system using Unreal Engine 4's blueprint system. You can see the pack of wolves over there, which is spawned in by this BP spawn point. You can pull it out and you can set which class you're gonna spawn, the character mesh, the material, and how many you want to spawn. And not just that, also the AI is gonna keep on patrolling within the bounds of the box. And if you kill one of these actors, it's gonna notify the spawn system, and every couple of seconds, in my case 30 seconds, it's gonna check if there's a killed actor, and in case there is, it's gonna respawn a new one. Of course you can like set this up to fit your style and respawn all of them at the same time or just one at a time. Yeah, as you can see, a new guy just spawned in and killed me. Just create a new project using the third person template. Just make a new blueprint of class actor called BP spawn point, and we're gonna open it up. And the only thing we really need in here is a box collider, and we're gonna call it bound. And yeah, just leave it as it is because we're gonna just change the instance outside when we pull it into the scene, but here we don't care about the size. We also need to change the collision settings of our bound box to not interact with our world. So we don't want overlap events and we want no collision. Otherwise we're gonna have a lot of weird issues. So don't need this, just on begin play, make a for loop, and promote this to a variable. So yeah, we're gonna start at the 0 index and spawn as many actors as we want here. So call actor amount, or spawn amount is probably better. Spawn amount, and make it visible from the outside. Okay, and yeah, start from 1 because otherwise it's gonna be one extra guy if we start at 0. Okay, per loop body, we're gonna make a new function called spawn character and call it per loop body. Here we're gonna use a bound and get component bounds, and we're gonna use the origin and the box extent, random point. Yeah, random point in bounding box. And it's gonna give us a vector we can use for the position of spawning our actor. So spawn actor from class, and for now we're just gonna use the third person character, and we're gonna have to make a transform to give to this function. So make a transform. Yeah. For now we don't really care about the rotation, but we can make a random rotation. So basically we don't want the roll or the pitch to change, but only change the yaw randomly, so it's gonna like face in a different direction. So make rotator and yaw get random float. Yeah, we don't care about the range, it's gonna do it automatically. Okay, just keep the scale as it is, and this is enough to spawn an actor. Now we're just gonna pull it out here and set our spawn amount, let's say 2 guys, and make the box a bit bigger. Okay, so you can see we have 2 guys spawned in, but you're gonna notice 2 different problems. So first of all, they're just floating in the air, which is because they don't have an AI controller right now, and no players possessing them, and also they spawn at different heights because the random point in the box also gives a random point regarding height. But what we really want is to get the height of the terrain, what we're standing on, and spawn them on the terrain or the platform. So in order to do that, we have to get a line trace, do a line trace and get the point where it collides. So we're still gonna use the random point in the bounding box, and trace line trace by objects. Okay, so we only care about one object type, which is world static, and we just make a new array with world static. And yeah, so now we need the start point. The start point is basically this, but we need to start from a different height, because let's say we have terrain which has hills or is not always the same height. We need to make sure we start above the terrain or above the platform. Okay, so we keep the x and the y, and we just add a value to the z to make the cast start from higher. So let's just add a bunch here. So plus float, and let's give it like 10,000 or something. So this is our starting point, and the end point is gonna be the same but lower. So we need to get the actor up vector, and we need the down vector actually, but there is no node for it. So you just multiply it by -1 and you get the down vector instead. -1. But we also need to make it longer, so we have to multiply this by a float, and it should be longer than this. So 15,000. Okay, so our end is this vector plus this vector down here. Okay, this should be it. And we can draw it for duration, just so we can see it. Okay, and now we need to get the hit, get the impact point, and plug it in as our new location. Clean this up a little bit. And now you can see we get the raycast from the top. Yeah, we actually don't need to go that high, but we get the raycast and we get the terrain. So we can place our actors directly at the same height as the terrain or the platform. So there's two problematic things right now. The first one is the actors might be at the same spot and one of them is not going to spawn. So we can try to adjust location but always spawn. So if one actor is already out there and the second one is in the same place, they're going to adjust instead of just not spawning. The second one is that if our terrain is not even but has an incline, the capsule collider might cause issues and not spawn our actor. So we need to break this vector and set our spawn a little bit higher than the actual impact of our hit result. And make a new vector. And yeah, just add about 100 to it. Yeah, so this should prevent two of the big issues. And our actors should always spawn in correctly. So instead of just spawning a player character, we now want to spawn AI and actually have it move around inside of the box. So we make a new class from this one called BP enemy guard, something like this. Open it up, and we have to give it a AI controller, but it's not going to spawn if we just have placed in world. So we could either do placed in world or spawned, or we're going to call it from our spawn function, which is actually smarter in our case. So this guy, we can say spawn default controller, and it's going to possess this pawn. But the default controller still doesn't have any behavior to it. So we actually want to make a new controller for it. So we're going to make a new folder, and it's called AI. Make a new AI controller. Find it here. AIC, what do we call it? Enemy guard. and we're gonna create a behavior tree. We're not gonna use begin play, but on possessed, which is a good idea to always do. And now we need to create a behavior tree and a blackboard. We're just gonna make a very simple one to show how to use the bounds of the box to patrol around. And create the behavior tree, BT enemy guard, and the blackboard, BB enemy guard. Go in here, sequence, and make a move to. And we select our, yeah, it's already selected. Go into our blackboard and make a new vector and call it move to location. Yeah, and yeah, now it's already set here, move to location. Before we can move to a location, we need to set it first by making a custom task. So we're gonna make a new task and go back out so we can rename it and call BTT set move to location, and open it up. So we get the receive execute AI, and we're just gonna make a local variable to make it cleaner. Local controlled pawn, and make it a pawn. Okay, and set it here. So okay, now we need to cast it to our enemy guard, and we need to get the spawn point off of our guard, but we didn't set this yet. So we need to go back into our guard and set the spawn point. Set the spawn point, and it's of BP spawn point. So this is going to be set from the outside. So we so we can use it when we spawn our character on the spawn point. So update our class here, enemy guard, and get the spawn point. Set the spawn point to self. Okay, now back here we can grab the spawn point of our enemy guard and get the bound from it, and again do the same thing we did when we get the random location. Component bound and random point, random point and bounding box, yes, and give it the extend to. So yeah, this again is going to get us a random z value as well, but the navigation system is just going to ignore it. And now we need to get our AI controller and cast it to the one we made, but it's still not finished yet, so we need to do some more work on this component first before we can do what we need to do. So let's go back in here, and yeah, now we can call our behavior tree, run behavior tree, the one we just created before, and also use the blackboard. Use the blackboard we created before and save a reference to it. Blackboard, blackboard component, I believe. Yeah, component, and save it here. So now we can make a new method to set the location. Set the move to the location, get our blackboard and set value as vector, and we're going to take in the vector here, location vector, just pass it in here, and we need to set the key, so make a new variable, compile, and type in move to location, and this is our move to location key. Okay, so now we can access this from our custom behavior tree task and can set move to location here and just pass in our vector we created here and then finish, execute, and success. Now that our task is created, we can use it here, set move to location, and after that we're gonna execute move to. And the reason nothing is working right now is because we don't have a nav mesh bounce yet, which we're gonna create here. Nav mesh bounce volume. Yep, and just make it bigger. And we also need to set the class for the AI controller class for our enemy guard, because if it's just a default control, it's not gonna work. So we can set AI controller class to our AIC enemy guard, which is now the new default controller. So spawn default controller will now spawn this controller here instead. Now you can just place your box anywhere you want, and they're even going to be able to spawn on top of this, for example. Yeah, and find their way down if the navigation is connected. But you can see they're just like jumping around all the time, so maybe we can add a wait node once they reach your location. Wait for 3 to 7 seconds, which is gonna make it look more natural. Yeah, you can see. The last step will be to notify the spawn point if one of the actors dies and respawn them if we need to. So we go back to the spawn point. We need to add an array on here, an array of pawns. So spawned active pawns of class pawn and make it an array. So when we spawn our guy, we're gonna add him to the array here and take this. Yeah, so every new spawned guy is gonna be added to our array. And then when one of the guys dies, we have to notify the array of that. On our BP guard, we can get the override function destroyed and get the spawn point, get the active pawns array, and remove ourselves from it. Remove item and get self. Yeah, so every time an actor dies, it's gonna notify the array on the respective spawn point, and we can then check the length of the array and spawn new guys if it's necessary. So back on our spawn point, we're gonna make another function, respawn character, and we're gonna call it on begin play. Once we complete the loop, call timer by function name, set timer by function name, yeah, and just type in the respawn character. This might be case sensitive, so be careful. And let's make a new variable here, and we can set it from outside. Time till respawn, and make it public and start looping it. Yeah, here we don't need to change anything. Go in here and just spawn character. If the active pawns length, then make a branch here. So if the length of our array is smaller than the spawn amount we set, that we spawned in the beginning. So this is basically checking if somebody is dead now. And if that is the case, we're gonna spawn one new guy. So here you could, if you want to check like how many are dead, and then spawn, make a for loop and spawn that many guys. But yeah, we just want to keep it more natural, just spawn one after the other. On our spawn point, we can now set the time to respawn, let's just say 5 seconds. So every 5 seconds it's gonna check if somebody's dead and then respawn one guy. Yeah, in order to check this, we have to be able to kill them. So let's just, on our character, make a new input keyboard, just put on Z and find act and get all actors of class. Like you should never, like you should be very careful with this, but just for testing we can use it. Get the enemy guard and get the out actors for each. Destroy actor. Yeah, so now if we press Z, we're just gonna find all the enemy guards and kill them, and then we can check our spawn is working or not. So press Z, they're gone. Wait a couple seconds, and there's the one guy spawned in, and the second guy should come soon. Yeah, there you can see the next guy is coming, and the AI is working. And now we can just introduce some variety by making new material for the guard, and then we can have it randomly pick which color he's gonna be. So you could spawn different enemy types in the same way. Let's go into our mannequin material, and this is the body. So we can just make a duplicate of it. Body red. Go in here, blah, and change the body color to red. Save and apply. And back on our spawn point, we can make another variable, an array of materials. And this is material interface. Interface because we can have materials and material instances at the same time if we do it like this, and again make it public. So after we spawn the character, we want to set the mesh for the character. So we go in here and get the character, get the mesh, set material. And it's going to be index, wait, let's check on the mesh, material index 0. So index 0, and yeah, we could just pick the material here, but we want to randomly pick between this and this one, or like the ones we pass in here. So we get the material length, get the reference here, and get material length. And we get a random integer in range, starting at 0, and get the length -1. Or yeah, we need to start 0. Get the length -1, minus integer, because the index is 1 lower than the length. Okay, so now this is, depending on how many you pass in, it's gonna get one of the materials from here randomly. Yeah, so now there's like the same chance for each of these, but you could make a higher chance for a certain type over another one. And this is now also exposed, so we can go to our spawn point, here it is, and set the materials. So we can get the white and get the red, and yeah, you can see there's a white mannequin and a red mannequin. And we can increase the amount of guys we spawn, so it's more obvious. Spawn 10 guys, and yeah, you can see the color variety. And yeah, there's many different uses for the system, and you can tweak it to fit whatever kind of game you're making.